What's up, fellow Age Groupies? Welcome to another episode of the Age Groupies Podcast. I'm Mike Ergo, and along with my co-host, Lindsay Hiken, we're here to talk to you about all things related to endurance sports from an amateur athlete perspective. We talk about how to have fun along the way and make the sport a little less intimidating. You all can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join the Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo, on Strava. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us, agegroupies@gmail.com. If you guys like the show, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or those other places people get podcasts. All right, guys, enjoy the episode. Let's get to it. I want to talk to you about UCAN Superstarch. UCAN is what I consume on the race course and for long or intense training sessions. Now, it's different than any sports nutrition out there because they use Superstarch. Superstarch is a complex carbohydrate that doesn't spike blood sugar, delivering a slow and steady release of glucose into the bloodstream. Stable blood sugar provides steady energy to both the muscles and the brain and controls cravings caused by blood sugar lows. I recently used this to complete the Pandemic Man 70.3 using only UCAN, and let me tell you guys, I was surprised by how well it worked, pleasantly surprised. I didn't need to use any gels, anything, just UCAN. And I felt great. I didn't feel bloated, didn't feel hungry, didn't have any of those intense cravings I get on the race course a lot. So I want you to try it out too. Learn about why you should fuel the pursuit with UCAN and save 10% on all your orders by using the link in the show notes or entering the promo code UCANInspireMe at checkout. That's UCANINSPIREME at checkout. Thanks.
Okay, cool. All right. Welcome to 2021 Age Groupies. We have a guest co-host today because Mike is busy doing some, things that actually pay money this morning. So my guest co-host, friend of the show, former guest, Heidi Buttery. Welcome, Heidi.
Hey, everybody. Happy New Year.
Yay. I'm so excited to talk to you today. We've been, well,
we have a lot to talk about,
yeah.
for sure, because we've been pinging each other on the marathon challenge, not to be confused with a marathon.
That's right.
I keep joking with my husband. And then I wanted to touch on some nutrition tips and see wherever the conversation takes us.
Sounds good to me. Okay, so let's first say what a marathon is. And I'll just say this. Mike and I are doing this with Heidi, but it's Heidi's fault because she's the one who came up with this.
I instigated for sure.
Yeah, so tell our listeners what it is.
Okay, so the Marathon Challenge is a 3,521-mile virtual challenge across America. And I say challenge versus race because, Lindsay, as you know, with a race, you're kind of put up against other people. Where a challenge, we have our own timeline to finish this event. And we can choose whatever sports we want to go virtually across the US. And it's broken into, you can tell I've gotten into the numbers, but I want to say it's 43 segments or so. So we'll start at the Golden Gate Bridge. We'll end up at the Washington Monument. And this is all being tracked online via Run the Edge. So maybe you could link to them in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so I chose for my challenge, there's a couple of other challenges kind of in bed personally, because I wanted to make it my own, but part of it is going to be SUP, stand-up paddleboard. And in California, for the most part, we can do this year round. When my husband was helping me generate a training schedule or blocks of numbers, he put a 27-mile SUP. And I said, okay, well, I guess I'll be going up to Lake Tahoe to do this SUP. It'll have to be summertime. But all kidding aside, generated out the blocks. For running, for me, I wanted to hit 1,000 miles for the year. And then wherever the bike falls. So that'll be under 2,500. So I've definitely spent some time in the numbers. I know for you, Linz, what was really cool is I pinged you and you said, I'm in. My coach said I'm in. So.
Yeah. So I reached out to my coach, Wes, and was like, what do you think about doing this? And he was like, sounds good. And then I said, okay, I'm going to sign up. And then he wrote back and he said, you realize that's 9 miles a day, every day. Like, I mean, you don't have to do it that way, but that's what it is. So on days where you don't do 9 miles, you're adding miles to other days. And I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah. So I'm in anyway.
Yeah, and I got inspired off of doing a personal 5:38 challenge, which I started after election day and all the drama there. So I started that, and then I just kind of got into the numbers and training blocks. And so this seemed like just to be a very cool challenge. And maybe you can share too, Lindsay, your Strava numbers or just the idea of the Strava numbers, because they help us to kind of form our following year goals, which I think is cool.
Yeah. So I posted it. I don't know. I might have posted even on the Age Groupies Facebook page, my Strava numbers. And my numbers for 2020 were not super, super high. I mean, but they were okay, considering I was studying for the CPA exam and working full time.
And there's a pandemic.
And there's a pandemic. Yeah. So we roll all that in. Let me look this up really quickly. I have to say, I'll tell you a funny story when I actually get the numbers out, but I was actually kind of proud of my number, you know, based on all of that stuff I just mentioned. And then my partner, Josh, who's a maniac, blew my number out of the water. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
My total time for working out was 298 hours. My total distance was 2,154 miles. My elevation was 223,792.
That's a true NorCal. I just want to interject real quick.
Yes.
The people ask us, well, how far did you ride? And it's kind of like, I don't know, in my mind, there's a lot of beauty and quality in a climbing ride. So we may not have the miles, but the climbing for sure.
Yeah. And that's kind of what happened. I mean, so 223,792 feet of climbing in 2,154 miles. A lot of up. Where I live right here, it's in Northern California. I live by the beach, but it's mountains straight down to the beach. So when I leave my house, I have to either drive over a hill and ride, or just ride in the hills, which is what I do a lot. And run. So my top sport was actually running, not riding. My most active. Yeah. Not fast, but you know, there it is. So my partner, Josh, he runs and golfs and surfs, but his main thing is riding, cycling. So I was like, oh, I did 223,000 miles, almost 224. And he was like, oh, that's good. He's like, yeah. Well, the caveat is he's had heart problems this year. So he brought it down a notch, and he's just under 900,000 feet of climbing.
Oh, wow. So he could actually go for the million mark. I mean,
that's the thing. I didn't realize this, but he's been hitting the million mark.
Yeah, I could imagine, especially having a little bit of a slowish year.
Yeah. And then his distance was, just under 8,000 miles.
Okay, so we're going to give Josh the marathon challenge, but he has to complete it by March.
Right, because I said, well, I'm doing this marathon challenge. And he was like, okay, cool. And then I was like, oh, but you did double the distance just messing around with your heart problems. So cool.
Well, what I enjoyed with the marathon challenge is Strava gives you this great platform to look back. And then you can also say, hey, like maybe I can increase miles here, or maybe I want to take away miles here. And really, as an endurance athlete, what's cool is you can take what you've learned from a previous experience, previous year, roll it in, kind of make it new and fresh for the new year. So that's very cool.
So really quickly, I want to talk more about the marathon challenge and also your challenge that you did after the election. But I wanted to mention, and I've put this on social media, you guys, and it's also in the Strava club for Age Groupies. So if you're in Strava and you can look up Age Groupies, there's a club. And then we have our little challenge that we have talked about doing, which is significantly less than the marathon challenge, but it'll be fun to track these numbers over the course of the year. It's basically a sprint triathlon every month. So it's swim 1,000 yards, ride 15 miles, and run 3 miles. And I'm planning to do it on the same course every single time so that I can see how my numbers change over the year. So there's basically just a self-tracking Google sheet. I see Heidi's on here. I'm on there, Mike's on there, and then we have a few other people, Celeste, Pauline, Amy, welcome. So guys, you can go ahead and if you don't want to do a full marathon, the other option, or if you're doing a marathon, you'll hit this easily, is to join the Age Groupies Challenge, and we're going to track our stuff together and just see what it's like. And this way, if we don't end up having any races this year, we'll have at least be like, oh, I did a sprint, a sprint a month. So that's there. So Heidi, back up and tell us about, because you haven't started your marathon challenge yet, right? Because I started January 1. I think Mike started right away, which was like maybe the last week of December, because it allowed you to. And because he was like, I got kids, I'm freaking out. And so he's like, let me just start right now. You haven't started because you're doing another self-guided challenge. And so break down what you're doing, how you decided to do it, kind of talk about, I like your, you have a state sort of like.
State model.
Yeah.
I guess I'm feeling very patriotic. So, I think at the end of the year, towards the end of the year with the election, everybody was, and we don't have to get too into the politics on this, but I felt very divided. And I think we still as a country kind of feel that division. And I just wanted to, I'm putting out good energy, and I wanted to have this united goal of all of the states. So something that I thought of was, everybody was kind of gritting their teeth the last moments of the election and the week following, and just, are we going to hit those 270 votes, and getting tied up in that. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we could join these votes together and just have a cohesive total. And again, this is like my goals coming in numbers, but what about having a personal challenge that goes up until inauguration day? So I looked at this full 538, which is the total number of electoral votes of all the votes. Let me divide them up into states. And I was kind of playing around with the numbers. And for each state, so say Massachusetts, 11 electoral votes, I would run or bike those number, doing 6 times a week up until inauguration day. So that worked out to about 8.5 weeks. Awesome. I had a couple of embedded challenges in there where every course has to be unique. So this created 51 because I also included District of Columbia. Definitely need DC. Yeah. And so I put these all together. My husband is in data science, so he kind of helped me generate this training block schedule. And without the help of Zwift, I don't think I would be able to put this amount of numbers together, because as a mom, as a working mom, having other things going on, having pandemic, it really allowed me to take it to the garage when I needed it to. So to be clear, I did a lot of these runs and rides outside. I've got 40 down, I've got 11 to go. And as an endurance athlete, the consistency required, as you know, Lindsay, both you and I have done an Ironman. We can do it in a day. That's 140.6 miles. Don't forget the 0.6.
No.
And 538, you'd say over 8 weeks. Oh, 538, you can kind of bust that out and plan it, and it's reasonable. But when you spread that over 6 unique days for 8.5 weeks, let me tell you, you get to week 3 and you're thinking, okay, this is good. I have this goal because I'll check through there. So it taught me as an endurance athlete that extra component of consistency is super important, and it creates a different type of endurance.
Yeah, that's awesome. And along with some of her states, she's done themed,
Nevada,
different themes. So I was thinking of Nevada. I want to put, so I'm going to, if you send me that picture, I'll put it up on the age group. It's amazing. So she wore this very, Vegas inspired cycling outfit.
Mike would approve of the shorts. Would Mike not approve? That's, as filling in as co-host, I think maybe I should have worn those silver shorts.
Yeah, silver lame shorts. It was amazing. So that's, and I think that as we enter, as much as people were hoping that, midnight on 2021 of, January 1, 20 would hit, and suddenly things would be back to normal. Pandemics don't work that way. So we're still here, and
You can't see me rolling my eyes, but I'm totally on board with Lindsay. But Lindsay, I will say it did offer this opportunity to look. I don't know about you, but actually I do know about you. A year ago, you were in your training, your beginning base building for the next season. And I feel like we have the opportunity to start fresh. No one's going to say, hey, there's no races a couple months in. So
yeah,
yeah.
We know there's no races right now. I mean, there hopefully will be in the future and this year, hopefully. But as of right now, it's unknown, but it's unknown about like organized races in the sense that COVID's not done, but we do have a vaccine, but then there's a new strain. So, it's a little hard to plan, but we're all pros at not planning now because we just did a year of not having plans. And I love to see the creativity, like this challenge that you're doing, having it all set up and embedding some other things like making the courses different. It keeps it interesting, because if you just say, well, I'm just going to run and ride every day, after a while, it's like Groundhog's Day, and then you stop. But that's what I do anyway. I'm like, I've done that. I'm bored. So to have something embedded, and that's for me, I was watching you do this challenge, and I was thinking, oh gosh, I really want to do something like that, like where it's going to keep me engaged, even if there's no races in 2021, or the races aren't until, I'm hoping to do a 70.3 in December, but that's 12 months from now. It's like I gotta, and then you brought up the marathon, and I was like, in. because they do some really cool things. So have you seen you haven't, okay, you haven't gotten there yet. I made it to the Bay Bridge because they're tracking the distance, right? Or I made it maybe over the Bay Bridge at this point, but I got a thing saying, hey, do you want to watch your flyover? And there's a whole like visual video flyover of like the part of the course that you've done so far in terms of mileage, and with music. I mean, it's really fun. So I was like, oh, sweet. I mean, I love stuff like that.
Absolutely. And I think too, just that visualization and the miles. And I mean, sorry if you're not from NorCal starting, but what's really cool is starting in NorCal, and we all know the Golden Gate Bridge. Woo!
Right.
And then we can just continue the path, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, so I went over the Golden Gate Bridge, through SF, and then I'm on the Bay Bridge now, which is, for those of you who don't live in NorCal, you might remember this one from back in the day when we had that in the 90s, we had a huge earthquake, and this was the double-decker bridge that basically collapsed in the center, and then a bunch of people died, and it was terrifying, and the video was awful, and but that's that bridge. It's been rebuilt. It's much more safe, and I'm on it right now. So yeah, I think, and there's different levels of subscription for the marathon. So if you want to check it out, I mean, you can get in there for as low as $25 now, which is what I signed up for, because one of my goals this year has nothing to do with sports. It has to do with me like changing my perspective in terms of budgeting and things like that around, because I realized, what do I want most in life? I want to retire early and then just do my sports whenever I feel like it in the middle of the day and whatnot. And so I'm like, okay, I can't just sign up for everything and buy everything I want if I want that other goal. So I signed up for the $25 level, which allows me to be in it, but I don't get the you don't get the medal. And Mike was like, oh no, I got to do the $50 or $75 level, because he's like, I need that medal. And the medal is because it's different pieces of the United States broken up. So as you complete them, you can put it together. And then I know you signed up for, I'm not sure what level, but then you added on, so you could get the map, right? There's like map of the whole country.
So like many people, I've turned my garage into sometimes our third home office, but also an area where I do my TRX and I do my Zwifting. So I wanted the map, and I guess I didn't realize when I signed up for the basic, although basic, I should have known, I guess. So I went back and ordered the map, and the folks that run the Edge are awesome. I mean, they sent out the map like 2 hours later, they mailed it. So they're super on top of things and just super nice staff. So I will have the map and I'll put it up, and we're connected virtually, which I think is another cool point, Lindsay, because a lot of us who are still training very solo, it was so connecting for you to be on. And then the next day, I remember I saw Mike had joined. I'm like, this is great, because it's very connecting in a time when we're a lot of shelter in place and this and that. So it's very cool.
And then Mike has roped in a bunch of his Marine friends from all over the country. They're all doing it together, and I know they're connected in a Marine troop of people doing it. And so, Age Groupies, if you get on a marathon, look me up, Lindsay Hiken, look up Mike Ergo, and then Heidi's under Heidi Badger, as in Honey Badger.
That's my alias.
Yes. It's a Honey Badger, but Heidi Badger. And
way to give it away.
Well, I'm like, they're going to look for Heidi Buttery, and they're going to be like, there's no Buttery. And then also join, of course, the Age Groupie Challenge, and just track your sprint try throughout the month. They can be broken up, or you could do it all together. I'm hoping to do mine together, like on a weekend day, do a swim, and then hop on my bike and then do a run. That's what I'm hoping. But you could break them up by days, or however you want.
Absolutely. And I think having the framework of a challenge by numbers, whether it's a marathon or age groupie, I would encourage people to really make it their own. And, especially with having the age groupie challenge within the marathon is very cool, because again, you're creating intentional courses. You're not just getting through the miles. So as Lindsay pointed out, doing your activity on the same course is very cool. And I have those in mind. And never say just 3 miles or just that. Like, you can make those miles count. I have a particular 5K loop at one of the local parks, and every now and then I'm just gonna be like, I'm gonna lay the hammer down, and I'm gonna get like the QOM, and I'll come, and I'll come within a second, and I will be bent over, can't breathe for after doing 3 miles. So you can really make it your own. You don't have to go to that extreme, but find something that really fits you.
Yeah, and we wanted to make the Age Groupies Challenge short because for a few reasons. We may have listeners and people who want to join who are not, haven't done longer distance stuff, half Ironman, and I didn't want them to feel intimidated, like, oh, it's unattainable. We may have people who are just getting into triathlon, and maybe or any of these sports. During the pandemic, a lot of people picked up physical activity, which is amazing. So we may have people who are just like, what is this whole triathlon thing? And we didn't want them to feel like, or maybe they can't even run 3 miles right now, but you could walk 3 miles and still, you know what I mean? It's a reasonable number that you could walk, even if you have a life and a family. If it's a 10-mile, 15-mile run, it's like anyone who can't run it is not going to be able to probably do it, because it's just going to take too long, or they won't do it. So we wanted to make it, but then the last reason is that a lot of us who have been doing this sport for a while focus on longer distance all the time. And we tend to skip over some of the speed work, unless we have a coach who's making us do it. You know what I mean? We tend to go, well, if I just run 3 miles, it's nothing. That's not a run. But it is if you pick up the pace or do some intervals in there, or, and the same with the ride. Like, there are some gains to be had by focusing on a shorter, but maybe more intense effort if you want to.
Linz, and that brings up a good point of, I'm kind of, the wheels are turning in my own head, and part of that is my Phil's coffee. I was like, I guess I should have Starbucks like Mike, but I got my Phil's here. But I'm just thinking about what you're saying too, and my inclination is to do a short, speedier, but as an endurance athlete, what is even more challenging is going a slower pace sometimes. So, and we come into injury all the time, right? Unfortunately. Right. But if you're if you keep pushing yourself, like my ankle was telling me, hey, you got to back off from running a little bit. Why not use that opportunity to maybe do not your slowest of slow, but use it as an opportunity to nail your recovery run or your comeback ride. Just look at it a different way.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. And so I think that Mike and I decided on these distances because it kind of encompasses all of that depending on what your goals are. And they may shift throughout the year. I mean, right now I'm going to probably, when I first start doing it, I haven't done back to back swim, bike, run in long time because there hasn't been any reason for me to do them back to back. And so it'll be interesting. I'm probably not going to be pushing the pace too hard because I won't. I mean, first of all, the swim has been inconsistent. So when I get out of the pool, I'm usually tired now because it's like, oh, I haven't been in for 8 days, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So, doing 1,000 yards, I'm going to be like, okay. And then getting on the bike, it'll be interesting. But yes, and then I'm hoping for me to improve over time in terms of the pace, but I am prone to injury. So it may be a like slow swim, a soft pedal, and a walk if I'm injured and I'm just trying to recover. So yeah.
Yeah, and you could also use it as an opportunity to get from a walk to a run,
Yes.
or or a flat to a climb, say on the bike, to where you get, you improve a little bit on the climb. And my mom joined the challenge. I don't think she's on the spreadsheet. Hi, Mom. I'll show you how to get on
Yes,
there.
get her on the spreadsheet.
But when I talked to her about getting back up to her running 5Ks, she was like, "Oh, that's great," because for her it just fit to take her 1-2 mile run and just get it back to her
Mhm.
5K. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, so started back up with my coach Wes, who was on a couple months ago, talking about the Hoodoo 300. He was coaching me for the Trans Rockies, and then I stopped coaching when the pandemic hit and my event got canceled because I was like, well, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm studying for the CPA exam. I'm just gonna work out whenever. And so I stopped with coaching. But then towards the end of this year, I signed back up because I'm like, well, I do have goals and I want to get back in shape. And, he had gotten my run back without knee pain. And then it came back, of course, when I was doing my own thing because I didn't do anything consistently. I didn't do any strength consistently. I didn't do anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I want my
Mm-hmm.
run back. And I know Wes knows how to do that. And of course, I'm already back running without knee pain. But the first several weeks that I was working with him, um, he had me going out for these, I mean, short, like I was almost, and I had to like battle my ego because I'm on Strava, I'm not fast anyway, but then what I was doing was he was having me do like walk, run, and what he was doing was he would say run like 2 minutes and then walk until your heart rate gets down to a certain number. So the walk
Mm.
could be longer because I hadn't been running really at all. So it's like I would walk, and I watched that improve over time, and then he was lengthening it over time, right? And now I'm running 4 to 5 miles, straight through. But um, so then I would look at that would be it. Like I did some strength, I would do strength
Yeah.
stuff. And then I'd start my run. That would be the workout for the day. And so on Strava, I'd be like, Lindsay ran 1.75 miles, and it took her, 18 minutes. And I'm like,
But I think, accepting some, being humble about it and having humility around, okay, this is, and again, I know we've talked about this probably before, but Mark Allen, who came back to win Kona, and he had to return to that zone 2 training, and he would get passed by older women that are would walk past him on the hills and hike past, and they would say, "Don't worry, son, you'll get there." But he had to retrain into that zone 2. So I always think if Mark Allen, who came back to win the Kona Ironman, can do
yeah,
it, we can do
exactly.
it.
I saw a meme a long time ago when about being passed on the run, and then the person was thinking in their head like, well, you don't know that I just rode my bike and I did all this stuff, and it's like I kind of want to be like, hey,
Right.
I got injured doing an Ironman, by the way. It's
I know,
like,
it's like, if you pass me on the run, I just assume you're not going as far as me, right?
right. So all right, people. So join challenges, and we're gonna have a great year no matter what happens. And so that brings me to the other topic we were thinking about, which is nutritional goals. A lot of people already, start the year off without a I mean, with a,
Mm-hmm.
huge nutritional goal, usually, like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people start, and I've been guilty of that. Like, just,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to not eat any flour all year. And I never make it. I mean, I never do. But,
Right.
so for
And
me this
most
year,
people, yeah, I would say most people will fall out of that by mid-January, I think,
yeah.
is the
hmm
stats, right?
I always get taken out. Like, I'll go, I'm not, no sugar all year. And then I get taken out by Valentine's Day, which my Josh and I don't even celebrate really. We're just like, we live together, we've been together a long time. It's like, but I'll be like, it's Valentine's Day. It means gelato or something, I don't know. But, um,
Well, we're surrounded by these food temptations. And I think you bring up a good point, Lindsay, is January, we can kind of get away with, oh, there's no big events. I'm past the holidays. But then, for me, Easter candy, gosh,
oh,
I mean, I feel like Easter candy is marketed just beyond every other
insane.
holiday.
Dancing bunnies and stuff. I'm like, oh, so for me this year, I did not set any big nutritional goals. In fact, I didn't set any big goals. My goal this year was to give myself a break from always pushing my agenda to improve. So I am working on my budgeting stuff, like I mentioned. Um, and I'm gonna, I have my coach and I'm gonna do my workouts and a marathon stuff, but I'm not like doing my huge self-improvement that I normally am like, okay, I'm meditating every day and I'm not eating this. I've shared on the show already, I'm now pre-diabetic. So I wouldn't say eating goals. There's certain things I'm just not gonna eat now because
Partake, right?
I don't want diabetes. Um, but okay, so for people who do what I normally did, which is set some probably unattainable goals, I want to hear like your thoughts about setting nutritional goals and like what's reasonable and and how do you sustain it beyond, the beginning of the year?
Excellent, excellent question. So when you had mentioned, Lynn's, the no this, no that, I mean, if you go on Whole30, which I don't, I've done Whole30, but I wouldn't say it's a good thing to be doing all the time. Um, for a couple of reasons, but if you fill in the no sugar, no wheat, no, you can go to a whole list of what you could possibly cut out.
hmm
My number one tip: forget that all or nothing mentality unless you feel like you could benefit from a reset. So maybe like a 30-day. I would encourage people, if they are going to do no this or that, whatever it may be, go for 60 days, because there's no light at the end of the tunnel when you get into 2 weeks into it. So if you can make it those 2 weeks in a 4-week, no cutting out sugar, you've got to make real lifestyle changes to keep it going for
hmm
60 days or 70 days, whatever it might be. So I would say for the most part, let's not think about those extremes, but
hmm
sometimes they do help. And you can listen back to prior episodes, but my nutrition experience focus has been around making recommendations for endurance athletes.
hmm
And it really is tricky to have a no sugar, or keto is popular now,
Yeah.
to sustain you for that longer activity.
Yeah,
One of,
yeah, it is.
mhm,
And I will say this, I have started the fasting, intermittent fasting. It's a recommended protocol if you are like in pre-diabetic, if you're pre-diabetic or type 2. Um, so a 16-hour fast and 8-hour
mhm,
eating window. But then even with that, they say, do it 5 days a week. Don't do it like
mhm,
don't it's sort of it is a lifestyle change because they're recommending it
mhm.
ongoing, but even within that, they're like, not every day, because some days you just need to, you just need to let go of all of that. And
We're
so that's what I'm
human,
kind of
and
doing. Yeah.
right, right. And as you said, and I just want to point out for fasting, it's there are certain situations where it's not good,
hmm
or healthy, but for a lot of people, especially in the endurance space, and to increase our metabolic efficiency, and not, UCAN is actually
hmm
sponsor of the show, and they promote that metabolic efficiency
hmm
concept, um, going through. And for a lot of people, um, if you're an endurance athlete, if you are fasting and you do an activity completely fasted, like after, sleeping all night, it actually benefits your gut microbiome. So we hear a lot about this, our immune system, and endurance athletes have a particularly cool benefit in there, that it really helps their immune system. So
Yeah,
it's
I've been
kind of
doing some workouts fasted. Like I've done swim fasted. I did a ride yesterday morning, short ride, fasted. I'll do run fasted. Not not my long ride or anything like that, but but I'll go do and um, I thought I was going to be bonky or whatever, but I'm not. So great, it's fine. Um, and I am seeing some benefit from it. I feel better. For me, I was experiencing like puffiness and stuff in my body, I think from the diabetes, whatever. So this seems to be helping some of that. But okay, so you're saying if you're going to do, if if you're thinking about something extreme nutritionally, like cutting out XYZ or whatever, make the time more reasonable so that you're doing more of a cleanse or a reset as opposed to I'm going to do 365 days of this thing.
Because I think a big part of last year is really accepting where you are. What can you control? What can you do? And I think part of accepting where you are is accepting who you are, all that self-love that goes in. And, to be honest, if you're so focused on that nutrition piece, I know for me personally, it takes up too much headspace, and you want to be thinking about other things, right? And so, I think one of the things I wanted to touch upon is we talk about connecting to our why for our race, our goal. Connect to your why for your nutrition. So for me personally, something I've really connected with is, as someone who does deal with depression, anxiety, having a steady blood sugar level makes a big difference to my anxiety. And so for me, that's my why of, okay, let me structure out a little bit of what I'm eating, put some thought into it. Don't just leave it, out there, which I was going to say, you want to sort of think about your food environment, what you have in the house, but also what is your why for making the nutritional change? And as you had mentioned before, Lindsay, vanity, for sure, like we want to feel good, look good, but what is your why? Is it because you want to run around with your kids more? I know grandparents talk about that all the time, and just staying in some kind of fitness.
Yeah, vanity isn't enough.
That diet.
Vanity is not enough. I mean, as much as we might all be vain to a certain extent and want to look a certain way in a pair of jeans, and I definitely am that I feel that way, but it isn't really enough of a why deep down. And we all know that I think everyone it feels that way deep down, because if vanity in and of itself was enough, sorry for the barking dogs. Hold on one second, please. Terriers. So
we have fostered a terrier. They
yes, you know what they're like.
I know both extreme of dog.
Right. Yes. Heidi's got a lovely Bernese Mountain Dog named Bonnie, who's just chill. She's so
complete
mellow.
opposite, but yeah.
Right. Total opposite. In fact, we stayed together before Wildflower Race one year, remember?
Yes.
And we both had our dogs. So it was Heidi's family, her parents, her son, her husband, and Bonnie Doon, and then just myself and my Jack Russell Terrier Duke. And well, Bonnie did want to play with Duke. I mean, she was like, "Hey, buddy," and he's a douchebag, so he was just like, "Yeah, I don't," because his ego couldn't handle that she's bigger than him physically. He was like, "I'm not even going to acknowledge your existence." He's like a little. But he just spent the whole day running around, and testing the fence to see if he could escape. And Bonnie was like, "I'm going to lay here in the shade and just kind of chill out." So, but what I was going to say about vanity is, if vanity were enough, most of us would be successful in our diets, quote unquote, that we do, because
right.
we would be motivated to continue to not eat XYZ, and that's just not that's not it doesn't happen. So I think the idea of connecting with a why is great. I know for me, my eating has improved. I feel like I had a fairly healthy diet before, but obviously needed to deal with some things with the diabetes, and having that be the motivating factor, not about like what size clothes I'm wearing, or, disparaging myself, over that I'm aging, my body doesn't look like it did when I was 23, or, those kinds of things. None of that. I'm not even doing that. It's like, what is the eating protocol so that I don't end up on diabetes medication? And that's what I'm doing. And my body's responding in a positive way, but it's like the motivation is there for that. I want to live long and be healthy. I don't want to be some diabetic old grandmother who has her feet like cut off and can't run around with my grandkids or whatever. I mean, so connecting with the why, I think is going to be key. So then do you set nutritional goals, I mean, for yourself? Or are you kind of over and beyond that at this point in your journey, or where are you personally?
Yeah, so I think, something I was going to mention is, and I've written articles about this actually. I used to write for an organic conversation, and then I think the company was put on pause for a moment. But I have in the past, I mean, I've said I tend to be an emotional eater, and I recognize that. And, that will get me down the path of, hey, I need to cut this or that out. And last year was a true testament, right? I think for a lot of people, because we were just under a lot of stress, working with toddlers, just working from home in general. And so I started, eating more. And I got to a point where, I mean, I didn't really pack on a ton of weight, but it was enough that it kind of started to make me feel slower on the hills. And I just was kind of like, I kind of would like to make a change. But rather than go to extremes, I kind of dove into this self-acceptance and also self-appreciation phase. And between the two of those, I thought, okay, this is hard. I might be eating more snacks than I'm used to, but what can I kind of do around that? And I don't want to be thinking about my personal nutrition all the time. So I looked around, and I encourage people to do this, is what is within your grasp at home, that if you are in an emotional state where you're just, I want this or that. And, another technique is you could go for a walk, right? Rather than grab the item of food that may be comforting. But I started reducing those, keeping some things in the house, because I do have a toddler, that are more like starchy and fun to eat. But looked at that. And then like I said earlier, the connecting to my why of just wanting to be a strong athlete. I knew if I kept putting things that are not good for me in my body, it would cause inflammation. All things I know on paper, but as far as implementation, it can get tricky. And I started to become a little bit more active and just appreciate my body for where it was, and just thought, I mean, I didn't go down a huge slippery slope, and it didn't matter if I did, right? Because we can always pick ourselves up out of it. But really, I took it was taking up a lot of headspace, and I just said, forget it. Like, if there's a year to forget it, and to really feel positive in your body, that's the way to do it. And I, connecting to the why, I keep going back to that, but it really is like, my why is I want to perform well. I want to be a strong athlete, and whatever my body looks like, I remember, I had talked to a girl years ago who said, well, I don't do spinning, I don't do cycling because it makes my legs big. And I thought, my God, I feel so bad for you, because I didn't say that, but, I was like, that vanity, and now when I'm like doing my Zwift, or I'm doing this and I'm stretching, I'm like, my legs are powerful, and I don't care. Like, if I have to buy jeans where the waist is tiny, I got to let out the legs, I'm doing it because it makes me feel good. So connecting your food choices to feeling good.
You have joked before about your German engineered thighs, but those thighs are friggin' power thighs, and they make you, I mean, Heidi jokes about it and then just busts a move up a steep trail. So, I mean, they're amazing, and yeah, I've seen people working out who are doing it for, we know people who do this for the wrong reason, in the sense of, not to be judgy, but like, it's not for the self-love and pleasure of it.
Yeah,
It's sort of a stopgap for some other issues, deeper emotional or mental issues, and well, I think both Heidi and I have expressed it, like, this, and Mike, this is part of our mental health regimen, is to be physically active. Uh, I like the idea of also acknowledging that this is just, this is supposed to be something healthy and happy for us, not a source of judgment or pain or whatever. So I
Hmm.
think the nutrition and the work, it's all combined in there. It's like this, you know, I guess, I guess it seems like what you're saying is like, just instead of making these sort of strict guidelines, do, you know, take a considered approach of like, what, is this supporting health, happiness, all,
Right. Are my
the
food
real things.
choices, drink choices supporting who I want to be, or I mean, definitely who you are and accepting, but um, we only are guaranteed right the moment right now, and then
Right.
looking ahead, like what do we want to be? And I think, yeah, having that acceptance and forgiving yourself, because I think, I used to get into the position of, oh well gosh, I had let's say red vines. I had red vines, I had this, and then you just keep kind of making and say tomorrow is going to be the change. Well,
Mhm.
maybe get into those and just forgive yourself, because think about, am I getting full from this? Probably not. So
Right.
eat something that makes you feel good. But there really is a lot of truth in tomorrow is a new day and a new start.
Mhm.
But don't have that be your go-to. Like, put enough thought into what your food environment looks like. um, there's a lot of resources now around that, and part of it will be education, because knowing what keeps your blood sugar steady is
Mm.
trickier, as we mentioned, Linz, with different types of diet. So if you're a
Mhm.
vegan, there's a lot of carb based foods, and so that could shoot your blood sugar up, or foods that turn to simple sugar
Mhm.
in your blood. And on the other hand, if you're keto, you could be having all this protein, and then it also turns to sugar,
Yes.
if you have too much. So there's definitely an education component. And I
Mhm.
was going to say, if we could do a Q&A, or however you want it to figure it
Yeah.
out. But if people have questions along the line,
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
given talks in conjunction with UCAN, back when we could do them in person, and ask questions. But I have, as you know, a lot of resources around that. So
Absolutely.
you want to
Yeah, I
put
think
effort, but not so much it's just consuming all of your
right.
time.
Not an obsession, and also not setting itself up of so many rules so that there's this yardstick against which you're measuring your performance constantly and then being disappointed when you fall short, because inevitably, I mean, there's so much to food on top of just fueling our, I mean, we have as humans have stepped away so far, or at least as Americans, from food being just fuel for our lives. Like there's so much emotional stuff wrapped up into it, good and bad, right? Like
Right.
celebration and I mean, there's just like there's so much around food that if you try to set some strict guidelines, I feel like that's just, for a whole year, that's just gonna, set yourself up for quote unquote failure. And for me, that leads to me kind of self-bashing, like, oh, you didn't do it. And I mean, it's it's actually more harmful mentally than it is ever helpful nutritionally. You know what I mean? So
Right. And furthermore on that, one of the takeaways that I got working with our coach Tim on Team
mhm,
Sheeper is, and I'm not sure if he said this directly, but it's something that I've always kind of taken away, is the more good stuff you put into your life, the more can. So it's not like I shouldn't eat spinach, but I can eat spinach.
mhm,
Or I can do these challenges. The more good stuff, the less room there is for bad stuff or negative stuff. So,
yeah,
one of the things is, I will socially have alcohol, or like, with my husband, have a glass of wine here and there. But I notice, like, it doesn't make me feel good. The older I get, it's like even a glass doesn't make me feel good. And having these goals, it just leaves less room for that stuff that's
mhm.
negative. Because I'm like, I want to be in my best headspace. So get to a goal place where you can tap into that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I feel very hopeful that we're gonna have, a good year, um, all of us. And I think there's some challenges still ahead with the pandemic and whatever, but at the same time, I feel like we've all kind of we've figured out a little bit. And also, there's been a lot of positive to having, for me anyway, to having this pandemic happen, in the sense that, um, not that I'm happy that there's a pandemic and people are dying, but just for me personally, the stay-at-home orders and the shelter-in-place orders have caused me to, I think I talked about this before, but get more in touch with my home and just kind of like where my roots are, and
Mhm.
um, giving me more time to just spend, like, just kind of chilling out. Like, some of the stuff that I thought was so important rushing around turns out not important at all. Like, don't need it at all. And
Right.
that's a nice thing. And I feel like that's a kind of a gift of this from the universe. Like, the universe was like, okay, well, here's a pandemic and you're all going to just relax now. And those of us who haven't had the misfortune thus far to have to be sick from it, um, have been given an opportunity to get in touch with who, ourselves, our family and our loved ones, in
Mhm.
our homes. And, for me, I'm going to take it as a positive. There are people who are just like, I can't stand it. I need to get the F out of here. But for me, it's like, of course, I don't have a 4 or 5 year old at home. So there is that.
Which I'm waiting for any second for him to come over here. Yeah, Linz, and I would say too, it was definitely an opportunity to meet yourself in a different way,
Hmm.
put the pause on and deal with some issues head on, and we continue. But as a nation, as a world, like, unless we're in that pause state, there are very important things that came up last year and still need to be addressed and
Yeah.
figured out. And we were just like, the pause is there. It's
Yeah.
like, you got to figure it out. And
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, hope and I think more people are recognizing. I mean, there were people who weren't recognizing necessarily that the pause was there. I feel like it's, you know, we're all kind of realizing, oh, this isn't going to go away. 2021, just because it showed a new year rolled over, like, this isn't. Everyone needs to sort of like regroup and figure out how we're going to do this going forward. And there he is. Hi, Aiden.
hi. Oh,
Hi.
he's
Hello. Oh my gosh.
getting big.
Yeah, so anyway, we're gonna make this a great year. We know what we're doing in terms of our nutrition now, thanks to Heidi. We know what we're doing, with our challenges, thanks to a marathon and Age Groupies challenge. And I think this is gonna be a fun year, and I look forward to it. And we'll have Heidi on again in the future, guys, to do maybe like Q&A. So if you have any nutritional questions, send them to, agegroupies@gmail.com, or you can just hit us up on social media. And
Oh,
I'm
you
gonna
can
put,
also, you can email me at
yes,
ultraheidi@gmail.com. So
yes, Ultra Heidi,
if
and
you
then
do want to
follow
reach out.
her on Instagram if you want some amazing, amazing workout photos. I mean, just super inspirational every day. I'm like, oh, look at, she's out in the. I mean, just, I don't know what kind of phone you're using, but it's got a
Thank you.
amazing camera. It's like, so good. It's
My
Ultra
husband
Heidi.
calls it Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The
And on Instagram, she's Ultra Heidi as well. But we'll put links in the show notes, and we'll link to the marathon in the show notes as well. And I think we did it.
It's been fun. Super great to talk to you, Linz. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for co-hosting. Bye. Alrighty, that concludes today's episode of the Age Groupies Podcast with me, Lindsay Hiken, and my co-host, Mike Ergo. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can follow the show on Instagram at Age Groupies, join our Age Groupies page on Facebook, and look us up by name, Lindsay Hiken and Mike Ergo on Strava. If you have questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email us at agegroupies@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast, as this really helps us get more exposure while we try to grow this little venture. And of course, if you have friends you think might like the show, please be sure to share it with them. But for now, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you next week.